And it's such a perfect dynamic. It does this sort of...
I love you to death. I'm obsessed
Am I
with
being
you.
chatty again?
Literally cannot get a word in. Very hard for me. I'm like, really trying to like, what you have to say, but like, I have to say.
You're right, you're right.
I'm not the only one delusional.
My favorite moment of every Love is Blind season is when they're at the honeymoon and they look at each other and think to themselves, what have I done? We're seeing folks sabotage themselves out of a fruitful marriage left and right. I can't wait to talk about it with you. Let's get into it. Hi guys, welcome back to Nikki Faces Reality. We are here to discuss Love is Blind, Season 7, Episodes 5 and 6. So 5 and 6 is where the couples have already proposed to each other and are now in like the honeymoon. If you haven't done so yet, do watch my previous video where I cover episodes 1 through 4 and I give you the rundown on each couple, what drew them to each other, what's keeping them together, potential red flags, things like that. So do make sure to watch it. I'll make sure to link it in the description of this video as well. But yeah, you guys, we're gonna jump straight into Mexico. As always, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe if you're new here. And yeah, I'm gonna be keeping up with this season, so you definitely don't want to miss it. So Mexico, we're seeing all of the couples settling in. We see a quick moment between Ashley and Tyler, and she's, unpacking, and he's looking at some bathing suits, and he's like, oh yeah, well, like, what you got there? And they realize that they haven't really discussed intimacy. They briefly talked about it in the pods, mostly that she's been abstinent. She wants it to be meaningful. She doesn't want to have a frivolous hookup. And he kind of agrees. He says that he has steered away from those kind of like soulless connections. I don't really believe him. I think that he's like down to get to it if she is too, but she's still being a little more reserved. But it would be naive to say that sex isn't important, and I really like them, so I hope that they can come up with an agreement that feels good to both of them. And this is clearly like the theme of the top of the episode, because when it goes to Hannah and Nick is like, hey, like, I know that people are gonna, ask like what's going on. I'd rather we keep those kind of things private. He says that he wants to keep it private because of his brand. And like, sure, like it's his prerogative if that's the reason. But I think it's valid to want that to be private. I know personally, if I were to be on a show, I don't want my grandparents, my uncles, my aunts to know about what things I'm doing. Like that, I understand why that should be private. And so Hannah is agreeing in this conversation that they will leave those things private, but like Chelsea, she does not. So these two, they are looking more comfortable together. It took her a minute to like accept that this is what he looks like. And now it seems like she's like warming up to him. And to Tim and Alex is like acting really annoyed by anything that Tim says. And they're doing that like play fighting thing that feels really juvenile, but they're on the balcony. Then they show us Marissa and then they pan to Marissa and Ramsey, and like she's like, oh my God, I can't wait for my family to meet you, specifically my sisters, because they know that I want someone like you, but like I would have never dated you. And he's like, what does that mean? And they touch again on the whole like hyper masculine, something that he is not, but she is very obviously attracted to him, and he confirms to her that she is his type. Monica and Steven look really cute and cozy. Then they pan to Taylor and Garrett, and they're taking a walk along the beach. She's still doing the Natalie thing where she's being kind of like cold and like dry, but he's into it for now, so I think it's fine. They get to talking about their moms. And I love that they're talking so much about family because it's mutual for them. That family is like the center of their lives. So it sounds like they really want to make sure that they're aligned in that way. But what is clear throughout, you guys, is that Love is Blind wine is flowing. At every turn, you see these people sipping from that like gold glass, and it is flowing. And we're seeing Tyler and Ashley. I don't know if she just doesn't feel comfortable, but she's like wearing her cover up inside the pool. I think it's also just like she's on camera. It could be that, but she's such a beautiful girl. And again, the wine is flowing and Tyler is like ready to like hold up on her, but she's like, be respectful, like keep your hands down. I really do think it's because of the cameras, because they just have such good chemistry. Yeah, but they're both like, what we're doing is crazy. Our friends would think we are crazy. Like, we have to defend this because it feels good. They go back to Alex and Tim, you guys, and I don't know what prompts this. Like, the room service comes in with their food and he grabs it. And she's like, do you think that I'm bossy? And he's like, I mean, I could tell that you're used to being a boss, but like, I'm unmovable. Like, basically, like, you can't boss me around. And she's like, She's like rolling her eyes and she starts telling him, like, in the past, she's had a short temper. And it just doesn't feel like that distant because she seems easily annoyed. You're allowed to be annoyed. You're allowed to have icks. But the things that she is being annoyed at, he was doing in the pods. We saw it. So him like referring to himself as a dog, him like being combative, all of those things he displayed in the pods. So they're having this conversation and he asks her like, what annoys you? And I was scared when he asked her this because this is the man that likes to do things out of spite. I'm like, tread carefully. You're dealing with a girl that said that she has a short temper. And then we're seeing a guy that likes to do things out of spite. Like, this isn't a good combination. But she answers his question and she's like, I'm annoyed by having to repeat myself. And he's like, okay. He tells her, he's like, listen, I told you I don't like to argue, especially not about like little things like nonsense, which partially for me is valid, but also like something that you consider small, I can consider big and vice versa. So like, you need to give the people that you love the benefit of the doubt to have the conversation. And the way he presented that was very much like, I'll leave for less. Just overall, she's coming off really like bratty. And I was really shocked to see that because I don't know if I missed it, but I just didn't get this essence of her in the pods. So seeing who she is in person, literally from the moment that those doors opened, I am stunned. And I wonder if he's stunned too, or if he like caught wind of this. Next scene that we see is of Nick D and Hannah. And I think they're talking about the fact that she's like, she's cried in a few of the dates, but she never cried with him. And she's like, well, I never cried with you. Like, it wasn't like I purposely cried in those dates. It was embarrassing. She suspects that he's referring to the whole Leo thing. So she's like, I cried in that one because I was cornered. Like, it wasn't fun. And I love that he was like, there's nothing to be embarrassed about. Like, I've been, you know, teary-eyed in a few occasions. And I love that he gives us the tea that like a lot of the guys were crying over on the other side. So now they're in person, you know, he's already told her she's beautiful a million times, but he's like, I'm so excited to see everybody else. And she gives him a side eye and he's like, not like that. Like, I don't want to, like, it's not like I'm pursuing them. I'm curious. We were talking to all these people for however many days. In her one-on-one, she's still stuck on the fact that he's not this bulky guy because that's usually her type. But she does say that she is attracted to him. They're vibing and we see them go to bed. And the next morning, of course, they already agreed that they're not going to talk about their sex life. But she does refer to him as Dr. Love. So I think that that was like an Easter egg for us to know that they hooked up. From here on out, it goes downhill, okay? So it's the next morning, they're like by the beach, and where they're seated, there's like these like huge ducks. I thought they were statues, but apparently you can like ride them along the beach or basically drag them along the beach. He's like, oh my God, let's ride it. He's trying to do this together. She's like, oh no, like men riding things give me the ick. Showing her age, okay? But he's like, screw your ick. Like, I want to have fun. I'm going to go ahead and do it. And she's like, I'm going to look the other way. He goes there. I'm guessing another beachgoer saw the cameras or just saw like a young guy. And she's like, oh, I want to do that too. And she comes over and joins him. This woman is clearly older. And it sounded like she was with other people. So it's like, she's not going to run off with Nick D. I'm sorry to say. But Hannah is peeved because it's a woman in a bikini. He's like, starting conversation with this lady. And she's super jealous and deeply insecure. So far, I don't think Nick is doing anything wrong. The woman hops on there. They're like talking. They're in different ducks. All of a sudden, Hannah yells out for him. The lady is like, "You're jealous? Like, stop it." And Nick laughs. And at this point, I'm like, oof, you're in a fresh relationship. You know her insecurities. You know she is fragile. You probably shouldn't be laughing with a stranger. At this point, the minute that lady oversteps, you should be like, this has been fun. Let me go check on my girl. And like touch base, make sure she's okay. And then drag her to do the ducks with you. But instead, he just like laughs it off. If he was with anybody else, it wouldn't have been a big deal. Hannah is furious, okay? She is seated there stewing. She's trying to pretend that it's cool, but she is stewing in her seat, okay? And again, I don't think the lady was hitting on him, but Hannah is seated there like, ugh, so gross. He can't be trusted. He can't be trusted. Wow. And so he comes back and she like makes it clear that she's disgusted by the whole thing and that she's above it. Like she's too cool to ride a duck like him. And he says, he's like, if you're jealous over this stranger, how are you going to act when we meet the other couples tonight? Like, what's going on with you? And she's like, yeah, I'm going to be me. And he's like, yeah, that turned me on. And I wonder if he's like being a dick or if he's saying that like he gets pleasure from seeing her upset. Like it was just such a effed up scene for different reasons. And it gets worse. At this point we're seeing, I guess, the couple's nighttime routine. Garrett and Taylor are so cute. Garrett is painfully hot. I know that he's hot because his nighttime routine didn't give me the ick. Apparently he tapes his mouth to sleep. So for a moment he was like showing like Taylor what he does with the scotch tape and making her do it. But then ultimately they were like, we're not going to need it tonight. And then we see them go under the covers. We see Ashley and Tyler's nighttime routine. They're already in PJs, praying together in bed. Super wholesome. Monica and Steven, I thought that they would have their clothes ripped off. They are also being super wholesome and cute. Marissa and Ramses are talking in bed and they're saying that they're sticky. And I was like, oh my God, yeah, because it must be so hot in Mexico. Except they're sticky because they already got it in. After dinner, they just couldn't handle the tension anymore and they went for it. And apparently it was great. So they're laying down now, anticipating what the night's going to be like for everyone else because they're like, oof, we got that out of the way and we're going to keep doing it. I love that for them. And so that was the end of episode 5. Picking up in episode 6, Marissa and Ramses had no sleep because they were busy. Alex is snoring and Tim finds it adorable. He's just laughing. Tyler and Ashley continue to be wholesome. Monica's skin couldn't be any more radiant. She is a stunning lady even when she wakes up. Garrett and Taylor, hot. We particularly see a moment with Garrett and Taylor like walking along the beach, and they say that they have good physical chemistry, but they don't go into details. So I'm like, did they? Didn't they? But she's, getting down to business and she's like, when we get to DC, that's when the work is really going to happen with us. And she leads the charge for a lot of things. And it's funny because she'll say something and then he'll say the exact same thing and she'll be like, wait, but why do you think that? Because when he says, yeah, like it's going to take some work once we get there, we have like some problems that we have to iron out. She's like, which problems? Girl, the same ones that you're talking about. It's almost like she forgot that she selected the male version of herself. He reminds her, he's like, you and I have to blend 2 highly structured, high-intensity schedules. I can only imagine the level of organization that it's going to take to blend it because they both seem like so career-oriented. But if they want marriage, if they're going to have to bend, and they seem to like want to put in that work. And the end of their date is them paddleboarding, and honestly, they're so good looking, it's sickening. Ramsey and Marissa are taking dance classes and they're manifesting the dances for their wedding. Ashley and Tyler are taking like a cooking class and it's really sweet. They're doing like the Lady and the Tramp with the noodles. I've said that Ashley tends to be more reserved, but she's making it clear that she values what they have and like she wants to protect it. So much so that she's like, if my mom has something to say, my friends have something to say, I'm going to tell them to get in line or they can't go to the wedding. Like, that's how much she wants to protect what they're building. Alex and Tim are like shopping for hats, and of course she hates everyone that he's picked out. I honestly think that it's kind of like their kink to fight so much. I don't like when people play fight too much because I feel like it can get ugly like in a second. But then we see them outside of the shop and she's like, how do you think like marriage is gonna go? He's feeling confident because he's lived with people before. So he kind of like, he says that he knows like the structure of things. She hasn't. So it's going to be like a learning curve. They discuss like messiness. And he's like, as long as you leave your mess in your corner, I don't care. They're definitely going to fight about that. Monica and Steven are doing like acupuncture. I'm not sure if they've been intimate yet because she talks a lot about like his equipment poking at her like while they're sleeping and stuff, but she doesn't really go into details just yet. But it's there. Like they can't get their hands off of each other. So it is time for the pool party where everyone is gonna get together. And I love this part because I love seeing people's realizations of like, damn, like I could have ended up with that, or I can't believe I went on a date with this person, or oh my God, these two people match each other. I love it. So it's a beach party. I feel like there is no dress code. You wear whatever you want. But Hannah is Miss Insecurity. She's wearing like overalls and a bathing suit. And she comes in and she's like, oh my God, I'm the only one wearing a bathing suit. Everyone isn't even there yet for her to make these statements. Like, just blend in and shut up. Monica is in there and she's like, I can't wait to see what Nick D looks like because he was such an F-boy in the pods. I want to see if he's really handsome. And she gets there and she's like, he's cute. Marissa and Ramsey come in and everyone's like, oh my God, like they look alike. And they each cannot stop talking about the fact that they have been intimate. Like they're telling anyone that will hear. And there's a moment that Marissa pulls Hannah aside and she like wants to know the tea about their intimacy. And Hannah's like, he's being weird about talking to producers about our intimacy, but we have done it. So let me get this straight. Your fiance tells you that he doesn't want his business out there when it comes to that. It's not like he's withholding it and telling people, yeah, we're doing it. No, you're still getting the benefits of intimacy, but he's asking for the privilege of privacy. And you tell your castmate on camera while mic'd. And the wine and the tequila must be flowing because she's like, yeah, I trust him, and then goes on a rant about the duck incident, okay? We have not heard the end of it. And so after she's done talking crap about him, she's like, yeah, but he loves me. He's just like, he's obsessed with me. Literally Chelsea 2.0. The guys are being so cute. There's a moment between Tyler, Ramsey, and Garrett. They're just raving about the feeling that they get when they hear their lady say, I love you. It is so sweet. I love moments where we get a glimpse to the fact that guys are just like us. Girls are also chit-chatting and they're like, yeah, like I'm gonna marry him, I'm gonna marry him. And Taylor's like, I told Garrett the bag is not secured. So we're back at this. And she also reveals that they haven't been intimate. So she's really making him wait it out. There's a moment too, like it happens really fast, where Tim and Steven are discussing. They have to realize that they're with women that are very smart and they both find themselves in situations where they're mansplaining things that they already know. And I knew that that would be an issue for Tim, But apparently Steven won't shut up, and that comes up again shortly. Nick is with the boys and he's like, y'all, I need to tell you about this duck thing. And he gives his version of the story. And of course, in his story, he refers to the 60-year-old lady as hot. And I'm gonna tell you right now, Hannah's gonna be pissed when she sees that back. But there is so much to this story, you guys. So I did notice that Nick's attitude in this episode is a bit douchey, kind of like his episode 1 persona. And I was like, maybe it's the alcohol, like maybe it's because he's around the guys. No, he's like that because he is hurt and he is being defensive. So he's being a jerk. Why he's being a jerk? Well, after they had that day, after the duck incident, that night, he sees out in the open in their room that she made a list of 10 things that she doesn't like about him. And she wasn't even trying to be discreet about it. She just left it out in the open. And he read everything. And it made him feel like crap about himself. And as he's talking to the guys, they agree. They're like, there's no way that this one incident made her think all of those things about you. These are things that she was already feeling. Like, that is unhinged behavior. So there's a lot of back and forth. So we go back to the girls and Ashley's like, I'm not a betting woman, but if I would bet anything, it's that Tyler and I are gonna get married. Monica's trying to get the tea on Taylor. She asks Taylor, are you worried that he hasn't been in a relationship in 7 years? Like, does that concern you? And Taylor says, yes, because while I love him, we know what's up. Men love to talk. Men just be talking. So I want to make sure that, like, he's going to act on the things that he says. And I couldn't agree more. Of course, it's not all men, but I have found that to be my experience as well, that like people talk a big game, they can paint you a fantasy, but when it comes to like showing up, they fall short. And that's why I support women having unhinged expectations, because you're never gonna get it met. Very few times you get it met. So if you have high expectations, you'll get somewhere in the middle. But if you already set the bar low, they're gonna go lower. So I respect that Taylor is like, no, he has to earn me every step of the way. It's a bit annoying, but I understand it. I really do believe that Taylor will cut him off if he steps up to her with some nonsense. I really don't think that she's a girl that will waste her time. So I hope that Garrett continues to being like a stand-up guy. And so there's a little segment in this party that I like to call keeping up with appearances. I think Nick is asking Tim like how it is with Alex, like if they fight. And Alex says, no, we haven't had a fight. And it's just so funny because I feel like in every scene they are bickering. He tells Nick, he's like, you know, she knows that I hate arguing, so she respects that. Keep that in your back pocket. Up next is Hannah trying to keep up with appearances because when Nick walks away, she steps up to him and she's like, hey babe, and she's like all over him. And she's like, you look so hot. And he is very confused because apparently before they got there, she was like dogging him on his outfit choice. I think she was mad that he wasn't wearing a bathing suit like her. Like, again, really fragile sense of self. Nick tells Hannah, I saw the letter. I saw your list. He's like, don't you think that's a bit drastic to do just because I wrote a duck with a strange woman? Want to give her the benefit of the doubt because the drinks have been flowing, but she doesn't apologize. She's just like, well, do you understand why I felt that way? And he's like, do you understand why I feel that way? Like, he tells her, he's like, I think that making a list of that length is extreme, especially when you didn't even like talk it out with me. So we didn't get to process anything. And so she tells him, she's like, I value respect and I didn't feel respected by you in that moment. And if she felt disrespected, it is absolutely his job to make her feel supported. However, you're trying to get married, you are going to run into much bigger obstacles. You can't make every pebble into a mountain. Like, this particular situation became way bigger than it needed to. But I also want to give her the benefit of the doubt that like they are having to cram so much of a relationship in like a few days. So But they're not really like coming up with a resolution, and I don't think that they will while they're drinking. She just keeps saying, I love you, and he's like, delusional was on the list. You think I'm delusional? Like, I'm hurt by that. And she's just like looking at him like he has three heads. There's a portion where the girls are pretending that they're gonna interrogate the guys, but they really don't. It's just a love fest of all the guys professing their love out loud to the other girls. And so they're all being Prince Charming, saying the reason that they've selected their lady. And it's just like a choir of, oh my God, you guys are perfect. When the party is over, we're seeing everybody go into their rooms. Marissa and Ramsey like wants to like exchange tea. And they really don't share much. They just think that Alex and Tim and Hannah and Nick like are the least likely to get married, but everyone else is like definitely gonna do it. We see Steven and Monica in their room, like, and they're starting to eat. Well, she's starting to eat and he's talking. I think he's also drunk, but he's also like filled with emotion, and he's like, oh, I feel so validated by you. I love you. And he's going on, and Monica's like, babe, you need to share this space. You need to let me get a word in. Like, when am I supposed to respond? And the way his face is like, it was obvious to me that this has been a reoccurring issue that we have not seen. She tells him, like, we've talked about this. This is gonna get old. And she's just been so doting and so understanding, and like nothing phases her. So seeing her like drop into this, I was like, ooh, is this a problem? And he's like, I'm gonna put a chip in my mouth. And she's like, and it's just awkward because there's like this long pause and they're just like staring at each other. But ultimately she smiles and he like hugs and kisses her. But we're seeing the cracks. But before their scene ends, she says, did you feel like there was like a weird vibe between Alex and Tim at the end? And he's like, no, not really. Like maybe. And she's like, yeah, like I felt something weird. I'm like, what did you see? Because from what we saw, they were for the most part like separate. We see Hannah and Nick, and Hannah digs out her crummy list from the trash. And they go down the list one by one as to why she has like certain like fears or concerns. And it is still crazy to me that all of this was stemmed from the duck. The last scene of this episode, you guys, is between Alex and Tim. And it is the morning after. And I knew something went down because I'm like, why did Monica say that? Like, what did she see that we didn't see? And we see Alex on the couch, and all of a sudden there's a knock on her door. So I'm like, who is it? It's Tim. I'm sorry, did you and Tim not sleep together? And they're being super like formal, like, hi, good morning, how did you sleep? And he sits there. And I'm like, what is happening? So apparently after the party shut down, she was feeling homesick. And so, you know, her mood, there was like a shift. And he was asking her what was going on. And she wouldn't tell him anything. She didn't feel like talking. And that made him feel like he was being shunned. And of course, none of this was caught on camera. And so from what it sounds like, she shut down and didn't feel the need to give him like an explanation. She didn't feel the need to explain like, hey, like I need a minute. Nothing. She was just giving him the cold shoulder. And then apparently he tried to distance himself because it wasn't going down well, the communication, and she was like getting in his face. He said that he couldn't get a word in, that she would like cut him off. There was a point that she put her hands on his mouth, and he was like, there were lines crossed that are big no's for me. He says he felt extremely disrespected. And again, he has said that he doesn't do small arguments. He doesn't like to do arguments at all. And like this escalated to a point that he just doesn't feel comfortable. She says that it escalated because she didn't appreciate the assumptions that he was making about how she was feeling. But then again, she didn't communicate what she was feeling, and apparently was calling him out of his name. So he's just like, he basically came there today to break up with her. And when she senses this, she's like, I want us to move forward. How do we move forward? Like, we'll do this in the future. He's like, I don't know. And she's like, do you want to continue sleeping separate tonight? He's like, I don't know. And he just looks numb seated there. And she like tries to move closer and he's like still. She's hugging him and he's like hugging her back, but it's like no life in his eyes. I feel like there's a lot that they're not saying, possibly to shield each other, which is the commendable thing to do. But also the commendable thing to do is to communicate with the person that you are going to marry and definitely keeping your hands to yourself. It's crazy, you know, like they've only been together for 2 days and it erupted like this. And I called it. That whole like play fighting, that whole like tug of war for power, it's not cute for very long. And they both want to be alpha, and I don't foresee that working. So that's where the episode leaves off. I'm looking forward to seeing how many couples actually continue on to the next few episodes, because I feel like a few of them, if they're being honest, they're on shaky ground. So yeah, I would love to know your thoughts on it. Let me know in the comments. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you want to keep up with my thoughts on this season, make sure to hit the subscribe button. And yeah, I'll see y'all in the next one.